Picture a wildfire tearing across the land. Every animal knows exactly what to do. Run. Deer, big cats, everything with legs is sprinting from the flames as fast as it can. That is what a body is built to do. That is survival. But imagine, in the middle of all that panic, one creature doing something that makes no sense at all. It stops, it turns around, and instead of running from the fire, it walks toward it. We will never know who they were or what was in their mind in that moment. But picture that choice, to face the one thing almost every other creature fled from. Because a moment like that, whenever and however it truly happened, sits at the root of almost everything we are. The light above your head, the warmth in your home, the screen glowing in your hand. All of it begins there, with someone who did not run. Think about your day. Warm food, a lit room after dark, a hot shower, a phone that glows in your hand at midnight. Every single one of those comforts traces back in an unbroken line to fire. Not the idea of fire. Actual flames tended by hands far older than any city, any language, any story we still remember. Your comfort is the proof that it worked. For most of our existence, controlling fire was the single sharpest line between us and every other animal alive. They had claws, speed, fur, fangs. We had the flame. The question is how a soft, slow creature ever came to hold the one force that everything else runs from. And the honest answer begins with something we have to admit up front. We do not fully know. To understand what fire gave us, you have to picture the world without it. Start with food, raw meat, tough and hard to chew, sometimes crawling with parasites that could kill you slowly from the inside. Hard roots your teeth could barely break down. Now, picture the night. When the sun dropped, the world did not just get dark, it got deadly. Darkness belonged to things with better eyes and sharper senses than yours. Predators moved at night, and a human in the open black was almost helpless, blind and cold and waiting. And the cold itself was a quiet killer, stealing heat from the body hour after hour with nothing to push back. In a world without fire, the night was not for us. We simply endured it and hoped to see morning. So how did it begin? Here is where we have to be honest. Nobody was there to write it down, and no one alive can tell you the true story. Everything past this point is not fact, but theory. Our best attempt to guess at something we will probably never know for certain. One widely discussed idea goes like this. Fire already existed in the world long before any of it involved us. Lightning struck dry grass. Volcanoes carried it. Wildfires swept the plains. And by this theory, the turning point was not creating fire, but daring to approach a natural flame, carrying a burning branch back and keeping it alive rather than letting it die. Whether it truly happened this way, we cannot say. It is one possible path, and an honest guess is the most any of us can offer here. And keeping it alive was a job in itself. If your fire came from a lucky wildfire that might not happen again for months, then that flame was priceless. You could not let it go out. So the flame became something a whole group protected together. People fed it, sheltered it from rain and wind, and carried glowing embers with them when they moved, cradling tomorrow's fire in today's coals. Some ancient sites show hearths that were used over and over in the same spot across long stretches of time, which suggests fire was something returned to and guarded, not casually lost and remade. Letting the fire die could mean going back to the cold and the dark with no promise of getting it back. The flame was, quite literally, kept. But relying on a natural flame has an obvious weakness. Any fire you're guarding can still one day go out. And so another idea often discussed is the point where humans could produce fire themselves on demand. Friction, wood worked hard against wood until heat became a glowing ember. A spark struck from the right stone. We cannot say exactly when, where, or how this understanding came about, and it may well have appeared in more than one place. But its meaning is enormous. Fire no longer had to be a fragile thing. It could be summoned. Cold camp, wet night, new land with no burning branch in sight, it no longer mattered. With that knowledge, fire could be called out of little more than your own hands. Once fire was in hand, it changed the most basic thing of all, eating. Put raw food to flame and something quietly remarkable happens. Heat breaks food down before your body ever has to. Cooking made tough meat tender and hard roots soft. It killed many of the parasites and dangers hiding in raw flesh, so a meal was far less likely to make you sick. And it unlocked more usable energy from the very same piece of food. Think about what that meant for the weakest in the group. Fire turned dangerous, hard food into something a child, an elder, or an injured person could actually survive on. The same animal, the same root, suddenly gave back more and cost less to eat. In a world where every calorie was fought for, fire made food safer and richer at the same time. The campfire was the first kitchen, and it fed us better than raw ever could. And that single change rippled outward into everything. Think about what easier, richer food really buys you: time and energy. An animal that must chew raw food for much of the day is trapped by its own stomach. But fire did that work in advance. A cooked meal is eaten faster and gives back more, and suddenly the day has room in it that was never there before. Hours that once went to simply processing food could now go somewhere else, to making tools, to shaping camps, to sitting together. Fire did not just feed the body, it freed up the day, and a creature with spare time and spare energy is a creature that can start to build and plan and reach for more than survival. Fire lit the first link in a chain reaction that never stopped. Then there was the night. Remember, the dark had never belonged to us, but a fire changes the rules completely. Suddenly, there is a circle of light in the blackness, a small pocket of day that we carried into the night ourselves. For the first time, the hours after sunset were not just something to survive with your eyes shut. They were hours you could use. You could see each other's faces. You could work, mend, watch, stay awake on purpose. The fire pushed the darkness back to the edge of the camp and held it there. We did not conquer the night by growing better eyes. We conquered it by carrying our own little sun into the dark. And that ring of light did more than let us see. It kept us alive while we slept. Most animals have a deep, instinctive fear of fire, and they will not walk willingly into a bright, crackling flame. So a fire at the mouth of a shelter or in the center of a camp became a wall that no wall builder had to build. Predators that would happily take a sleeping human in the open thought twice at the edge of the firelight. For the first time, a group could lie down for the night with something between them and the dark, a barrier of light and heat that the hunters of the night were afraid to cross. The fire held the darkness back so that we could finally rest. Fire was also simply warmth, and warmth meant we could go where our soft, bare bodies were never meant to survive. A human dropped into a freezing landscape does not last long on skin alone, but a human with fire carries a piece of a warmer world with them. It is likely that fire is a big part of how our ancestors pushed into colder regions that would otherwise have been closed to them, surviving winters that should have killed a creature built for warmer places. We cannot draw a perfect map of every step, but the pattern is hard to miss. With fire in hand, the borders of the livable world opened up. Cold ground that once meant death became just another place to light a flame and stay. Then we started to notice what fire did to other things and to bend it to our will. Hold a wooden spear tip to the flame and it hardens, turning soft wood into a tougher weapon. Heat certain stones and they fracture more cleanly, giving sharper edges for cutting and hunting. Much later, that same mastery of heat would pull metal out of raw rock and reshape the world entirely. Fire was not just one tool among many, it was the tool that made other tools possible, the first technology that gave birth to technologies. Every furnace, every forge, every engine is a distant grandchild of a person holding a stick to a flame and realizing the fire could change what things were. But maybe the quietest change was also the deepest. Before fire, when the dark came, there was nothing to do but wait it out. After fire, the night had a center, a warm, bright place where people naturally gathered and stayed. Picture it. The day's work done, bodies close together, faces lit orange, the cold held at bay just beyond the circle. People did not scatter into the dark. They stayed together in the light. Who knows? Maybe that is exactly when the first around the fire hangouts were born. Whatever was shared in that glow, the fire gave us something no animal had before, a reason and a place to come together after dark, night after night, instead of simply surviving until dawn. It would be dishonest to make fire sound like nothing but a gift. The same force that saved us could destroy in an instant. A flame that warmed a camp could leap free and burn everything: shelter, food, even the people it was meant to protect. A single spark in the wrong moment could turn a home to ash. Burns were among the oldest wounds we ever suffered, and in time, the very power that cooked our food and guarded our sleep also became a weapon, used to drive animals off cliffs, to clear land, to threaten other humans. Fire never stopped being dangerous. It was never tamed the way we like to imagine. It was held carefully by a creature that understood it could turn on us the moment we grew careless. And here's the detail that should stop you. In all the living world, we are the only ones who did this. Countless animals are stronger, faster, and better armed than us. Not one of them ever built a fire, fed it, carried it, and made it their own. Other creatures flee from flame to this day. We are the single species that turned around, walked toward it, and refused to let it go. That is not a small thing. Fire is not just a tool we happen to pick up. It may be the clearest line ever drawn between us and everything else that breathes. The creature that mastered fire was on its way to becoming something the world had never seen before. So the next time you flick on a light without a thought, or warm your hands, or stare into a screen glowing in the dark, remember what it really is. A faint, distant echo of a fire that someone, long ago, was brave enough not to run from. We did not become who we are because we were the strongest or the fastest. We became who we are because when every other creature ran from the flames, one of us stopped, turned around, and walked toward the light. Fire could have destroyed us, and yet, of every living thing on this earth, we were the ones trusted to hold it in our hands. We are not the strongest, we are not the fastest, and still, we were given the one force the entire living world runs from. This was never something we earned. It is a responsibility and a sign, the mercy of your Lord upon you. You were not made for this life. This life was made for you.